haven't seen anything yet though.
There it goes.
Ah,
Okay,
there we
recording
go.
is started. It's just slow. It's very slow. Teams has a vendetta against me. I think I know what I did to Bill Gates in the past, but he's carried this grudge on for 10 years now. So, all right, my friend, you can share if you have anything to share, or you can just talk if you want to just talk.
Yeah.
We'll go for that
I
way.
do have I have some slides because I just think, especially with the direct mail components, it's a little bit easier to visualize.
Yeah.
But feel free, I put this together pretty quickly, so feel free to stop me at any
Yeah.
point
Oh
if you
no.
have any questions,
Yeah.
anything like that. Okay. So, yeah, so this is a little bit about our surgical marketing campaign. You like your logo there, Michael?
Very good. Very good branding, Alex. You're my hero.
Yeah, there you go. You're welcome. So this is just a little bit about how we're doing it. Michael mentioned earlier, going after large companies. That's not specifically what we're doing. Um, but you could easily translate this into, if you were going after co-managed larger companies, or if you're going after fully managed, maybe a little bit on a smaller scale, like you could definitely do this in any capacity. The nice thing about it is it's super easy to tailor based on who you're talking to and based on what your company brand is and all that sort of thing. I feel like sometimes the hard part of marketing is figuring out how to get one message out to a million different people. And I feel like with surgical prospecting, you're sort of like unshackled from that. So
Mhm.
yeah. So I'll just really quickly go through this, a little bit about us. You guys all obviously know what an MSP is, so I'll skip that part of the spiel. We are based here in Portland. We do focus mainly on fully managed IT services. We have a handful of co-managed clients, but fully managed is really what we're going after with our marketing, really in all aspects. So that's what you'll see as the focus of this campaign. We're 31 people. We are a Cisco partner, Microsoft partner, Dell partner, Fortinet partner. We typically will partner with Cisco if we're going to do any sort of co-marketing stuff, but we're starting to expand a little bit. For uses of this particular campaign, we haven't looped Cisco in yet because we felt like we needed to establish some success and sort of refine the process a little bit before we went to Cisco and asked for a bunch of money to do it. But I think this was actually be a really easy campaign to get someone to co-market with you if you wanted to use any MDF funds for that. Oops. Trying to click in my actual PowerPoint, not in Teams. So this is our approach to surgical marketing. Again, you could do this very differently. So the approach that we've taken this year, Michael has his pillars of marketing. So we, over the course of the year, and it'll take us more than 1 year to do this, but we have basically introduced one new pillar per quarter. We weren't doing really a whole lot of outbound marketing at all before this. We sort of had done some short sprints here and there, but we hadn't established really an ongoing practice of doing any outbound lead generation or marketing. We were more about brand marketing, social media, newsletters, events, that sort of thing, which generated a lot of referrals for us. But as you all know, there gets to a point where you have to start reaching out to people as well in order to accelerate the kind of growth that you're going after. So Q1, we started with volume marketing, which is where you're marketing to very large group of people. Depending on your size and what you're going for, that number could vary, but for us that's 800 prospects every 6 weeks is when we introduce a new campaign. And that marketing is more broad messaging. It's not tailored, doesn't have people's names on it. In some cases, we're not even entirely sure that we're not even 100% sure we're going after the right person at the company because we've got a list of 800 names. And so we try to scrub those as best we can, but of course we don't have 3 hours to spend on every single person in that list, so it would make it really hard to get things out the door. So we start basically at the top of our marketing funnel with those 800 prospects, and we kind of see throughout the course of the campaign, which I'll describe here for you in a second, who engages with what. Do we get followers on social media? Do we get people clicking on our emails? That sort of thing. And in our specific case, we're targeting finance and operations leaders for companies that have 30 to 150 employees. Again, we're targeting fully managed clients, and that's our sweet spot. If you were targeting co-managed clients, this might look a little bit bigger for you, or might just look totally different depending on who you're going after. And for us specifically, we look for companies that are headquartered within 50 miles of our office. We're very much a in-person IRL company, and we found that when we can be face-to-face with our clients, that works a lot better for us as far as retention and service delivery goes. So that's sort of how we've determined these metrics, but again, could be totally different for you based on your business. So basically, we've taken the folks that engage in our volume marketing, and then we put them into a surgical marketing campaign. So we're not actually starting fresh with any of these. They've already been through several, sorry, there's a bug on my screen. They've already been through several touches with us over the course of months at this point. So we're not necessarily, the surgical marketing campaign isn't the first they hear from us. But what we do is with those very engaged people, we really tailor the messaging. It's a lot more specific, personalized. There's names on things. We do some LinkedIn and website stalking to make sure they're actually the right person, all that kind of thing, more research on their company. And we hit them with these really targeted touches, basically, whether that be direct mail, LinkedIn, that sort of thing, to continue to capture that engagement that we've seen in previous campaigns and hopefully turn that into an FTA or a discovery call. In addition to the prospects that engage, we also have some, as we're scrubbing through our list of 800 when we're doing these, we have some known good prospects that we sort of identify. So maybe they don't necessarily engage with anything in our volume campaign, but we know that they're going to be a good fit for us because they're well-known names around Portland. We've already kind of done some vetting. Maybe they're the local soccer team. We know off the top of our heads how many employees they have because we've been dreaming of getting them as a client for years, kind of thing. So if we don't have quite enough engagement from one particular campaign, then we'll sort of layer those two together to get to our list of 50 prospects. These are a little bit higher dollar value touches as well versus the volume marketing, because obviously, when you're putting out general messaging, you don't want to gamble quite as many dollars on the line as when you're being a little bit more targeted and concerted with it. So that's just sort of how it works for us. Again, you could skip the whole volume part altogether if you wanted to. This is just how we've been doing it, because we sort of got to a point where when we were doing these volume campaigns, we were seeing engagement. We needed something to do with it. Just happened to be that Q2 was starting and we were starting our surgical campaign, and we were like, this is perfect. And it's worked out for us pretty well so far. So just, again, sort of the top of the funnel, focusing on the volume campaign. I know this is not what we're here to talk about today, but again, just because that's where it starts, I think it's important for context. So we have basically a 5-step campaign with some down weeks between. So it's not like it's 5 weeks in a row of hit. But we start with a direct mail postcard. So I'm not sure how well you can really see it. I guess it probably depends on whether you're on your laptop or your desktop. But we start with a direct mail postcard, which you'll see on the far right of the screen, where it says, "We'll handle your IT so you can get back to what matters most." That's really the messaging that we're going into our volume campaign with. Is we hear a lot when Doug, our CEO, who's also our business development person, is out in the market, that people are really tied down by their IT. I'm sure you guys hear that a lot too. There's folks that are, CEOs, CFOs that are really not IT people, that are really burdened by this responsibility that rolls up to them because they don't have a full team of people in their organization to handle it for them. So we're sort of addressing that pain point in this of let's unshackle you from all the things that are weighing you down so you can do your actual job, and we'll do this part of it for you. After that direct mail postcard, we do 2 weeks of email campaigns. So basically, if you think about it, week 1 would be the direct mail postcard. Typically, we try to have everything go out on Friday. So that's technically week 0 is when we send it. Week 1 is when we expect that it arrives to them. And again, these are all local companies. So depending on what your geography is and proximity to these businesses, you might pad it a little bit differently, but we know that it's probably going to get there on Tuesday, kind of thing.
Can I ask you one question, Alex? Who's the decision maker that you're targeting?
So we are mostly targeting finance and operations folks.
Okay.
Sometimes CEOs, and this is sort of where you can be really targeted in the surgical part of it, but in the
Mhm.
volume part, there's often multiple people at one company that we're targeting.
Okay.
And I'm sure you all know too, job titles get more and more creative as time goes on. So sometimes it's a little bit trickier to target for the volume campaign for sure.
Could I just ask a question? When you say volume, how many are you sending out per campaign?
800. Yeah,
That's what I thought.
800.
Oh,
Yeah, and this was based on we kind of did some like rough math in the beginning, and we're sort of just like let's run with this and see how it goes. And I think 800 has been a good number for us. When we started doing this, we were trying to do 800 per month, which was a little bit ambitious for 1.5 people trying to get all this done, especially as we layered on, surgical and things like that. So we've dialed it back to about one batch of 800 every 6 weeks. And of course, one particular campaign will last longer than 6 weeks. So it's kind of an ongoing thing. Yeah. So then we'll do an email campaign, again, similar messaging. I think, so we're a Northwest company, so we're very into the like trees and lakes and nature for our branding. So we work in some things like get out of the weeds and, forest level view, all those sort of things in our email campaigns. And those work pretty well. After that, we do a hand signed letter from Doug. So yeah, Doug actually sits down and signs like thousands of these letters for us. Thanks, Doug. And then to follow that up, we do either a phone call or LinkedIn event invite. So we're constantly doing in-person events, and we find that this is a little bit easier than just like a standard cold call. It's a little bit more approachable, especially for our junior marketing person, Marcius, that has to make these phone calls.
That's interesting.
So typically we will, because we already have an event on the schedule, he'll call this person that we've been, trying to engage with in this campaign and just invite them to an event. We've actually had, we didn't have a lot of success in the beginning, but as we've refined our script and probably honestly, as he's gotten a little bit more comfortable with it over time, we've gotten more success. We actually have somebody coming to our office in a couple hours that came to a happy hour last month that now we're doing a proposal for and talking about fully managed IT. So yeah, and I think sort of just the nature of volume is like you've got all of these touches, and the funnel's a little bit more of a severe slope on the volume marketing front. Okay, so switching over to surgical marketing. So again, the volume stuff this is what they've been through before they see us with surgical. So our first step is a direct mail package. So I'm not quite sure how well you can really see this, but basically when they exit the volume campaign and they enter the surgical campaign, again, we're checking for engagement. Have they followed us on LinkedIn? Have they engaged with any of our emails? Of course, you can see on different email tools like how engaged they are. So we always try to pick the ones at the top, work our way down. And then those known good companies if we need to fill in our list of 50. So before we reach out to them, we're checking like, is their primary presence actually in Portland? I think I mentioned before, when we're pulling these, it's a lot to absolutely confirm that everything is correct. So this is really the opportunity before we go and invest more concerted time and also dollars in reaching out to these people that they're really the right people. So is their primary presence in Portland? Are they still with the company? Some of the tools, the list pulling tools, are not always the most accurate, kind of just the nature of the beast. And of course, they're relying on the data that people put out there. And are they the right person, or is there a more relevant contact? So when we're pulling our volume list, we're looking for specific job titles. But then when we get onto somebody's website or we look at their profile on LinkedIn, it could be that there is someone that is in charge of IT that's not that particular person. So this is an opportunity to actually take some time to look through people's bios on the website or people's profiles on LinkedIn and figure out who is actually the right person. And maybe it's unclear, maybe there's more than one person. We've definitely sent things to multiple people at one particular company for surgical as well. Another thing too is because we're looking for companies, like we're looking for specific job titles with volume, we're not looking for IT people. That's not who we're targeting. So this is where you need to check and see whether or not they have an IT team or an IT person that could potentially, depending on what you're looking for, make them not interested in bringing you in as an MSP. So in this package, it's really actually very simple. We've done, Michael, I know you probably remember, we've done some more like complicated packages in the past, but this is just local coffee, Stumptown's local here to Portland, and then a little branded note from Doug that basically invites them out for a cup of coffee. So it's very straightforward, pretty easy to put together. And, if you were doing smaller batches, this would not take you very much time at all. I think it takes us probably like a couple hours to put together 50 of these. So it's a little bit repetitive, but it definitely is not a big time sink. So after we send that out, we typically wait 2 weeks before we reach out to them on LinkedIn, even though, we're sending to all local companies. FedEx, UPS are not always the most reliable. So we wait to see if anything comes back before we reach out to people on LinkedIn. The reason being, when we're reaching out to them on LinkedIn, you can probably see on the screen here, we're actually referencing the package that we sent them. So if they never received that package, it gets a little awkward and like not very clear what's going on. So we want to make sure that everything goes out there properly. And at that point, Doug, who again, Doug's our CEO, business development person, reaches out to people on LinkedIn. Hi, Patrick, nice to meet you. I don't think we've personally met, but your profile caught my eye and it looks like we know some of the same folks. I'd love to grab coffee sometimes and connect more officially. In the meantime, I sent some coffee your way. I hope you enjoy. Then Patrick writes back a little bit of time later and says, sorry for the late response. Thank you for the coffee. I'd love to get coffee with you sometime. Please send me a note to this email and we can set something up. So before you reach out, I would definitely say if you do any step, do this step. 100% of the responses that we've gotten from the campaign so far, we're in the middle of another one right now, which I haven't reported on because we're not complete with it, but every single person that we have actually gotten proof of life or heard from this campaign has been on LinkedIn. So I would say that this is a very important step. But before you reach out, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to ask you, is this Patrick Fitzgerald a real person?
Yes. Yeah, Patrick is a real person.
And no, I mean, I was just curious, how big was the company that he was at,
They're 100 people and they make aviation headsets, which was, of course, Michael, Doug personally, right up Doug's alley. They had a really good chat.
But I really think that's indicative of, it's a good way to hit people at that level specifically too. Right?
Yeah. Well, and I think as well, folks that are, does Doug do that himself? I do that. So I'm fake Doug. Mm-hmm. To answer your question, Brianna. So that's another thing too, is like Doug as a business leader himself has a lot of credibility, which is really great. That's something that we really try to lean into a lot with our marketing. And then other fellow business leaders are not unfamiliar with the concept of networking. Sure. So those are things that we haven't really had to work towards in this campaign. Whereas if you were not a business leader yourself, you might need to do some steps before this to build a little bit more common ground.
Can I ask a question? Did Patrick connect with Doug previously?
Yes, he did. Yes, okay. He did.
So that's one of the qualifiers. So this wasn't like a sales navigator thing. He was connected.
Oh, no, sorry. Yes, he connected. He responded to Doug's connection request. So they were not previously connected. Yeah.
Yeah.
So all of the people that are on our list are people that Doug is not connected to already. So we have to send out 50 connection request invites.
I have to commend you. This is really clever. I'm more familiar with just a straight on surgical, but It strikes me these people are pre-qualifying themselves along the way with the volume prospecting. So for him to be getting the coffee, he had to already open your emails, right?
Yep.
And I don't know if he probably didn't need to go to an event or not. I'm trying to remember your previous.
No, I don't think he did. Yeah.
So it's probably he opened your emails and responded to LinkedIn request by Doug.
Yep.
That gets you here, right?
Yeah, and there's a lot of folks that will accept the request and say nothing.
Yeah.
And a few folks that will accept the request and say thanks for the coffee.
Yeah. So this guy is engaged with you at some level that makes it making him a good candidate for getting this more I want to say expensive, but more kind of like concentrated outreach. The other thing too is Doug is pretty prominent throughout the whole Do the emails that go out to the prospect go out under Doug's email or by?
The emails just come from us, but
Okay.
we could easily
Doug.
send them from Doug. The way that we have it sort of set up is, so the first in the volume campaign, the first touch is that postcard, which comes from us, Portland Internetworks.
Which has got Doug's picture on it, right? Yeah.
Yeah, the emails come from us, and then we introduce Doug with the hand-signed letter. And then everything, yeah.
And then the LinkedIn connection is you guys reaching out as Doug.
Yeah, exactly.
So then you get all the way here, and then a smaller sample size of those people go through all those hurdles, gets this campaign. And therefore, if they respond on this, which makes them more likely to respond to the fact that you're doing LinkedIn outreach.
Yeah. Well, and, I mentioned earlier, like sometimes we don't always have enough people that have engaged strongly enough to pull them into this campaign. And that's when we do the like known good prospects. That's sort of like our dream list, if you will. We did not on the first campaign, we didn't have to do any of those. It's only been after that we've had to loop those folks in. And I will say that we definitely had a better response rate from the people that had engaged with us versus the people that we just put in there because we want to work with them. So I do think that the previous engagement helps with the success rate as they go through the surgical campaign, at least from what we've seen so far.
Cool.
And, maybe.
When did you start doing this one? When did you begin these campaigns?
I think we started in April.
Okay, so it was after you did you had to do the volumes first, obviously. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And again, these are ongoing. So we kind of always have we are constantly pulling spreadsheets and reports and stuff like that of people that are engaging with us. And we track our social metrics and our newsletter metrics pretty closely as well. Mm-hmm. So we just have an ongoing list that we just compile on a regular basis in order to have something ready to go when it's time to start a new surgical batch. So one thing that I will add is, like I said, Doug has a lot of credibility. He's also he's a really strong networker. So he has a huge LinkedIn network as well. So when you're reaching out, whether it's as yourself, as your business development person, whoever it may be, or, whatever the case is for your company, finding common ground, I think, is important. You could even lean further into this than we're leaning into it. So if you were just doing a targeted LinkedIn outreach campaign, you could talk about specifically, these people went to the same school, they root for the same sports team, they support the same organization as your company supports, all that sort of stuff. You could be really targeted and really specific with these messages. The way that we've got it set up is it's a little bit more, I guess, general messaging. Like you can see in the message, I say we know some of the same folks. But we could lean even further into that. But really what I'm looking for when I'm doing the stalking, as we call it, is just to arm Doug when he goes into that meeting with a list of things that he has in common with that person. So, yeah. And then after the LinkedIn connection requests, and these, depending on how active people are on LinkedIn, we tend to see right after we send out messages, there's people that check LinkedIn every day and we get a ton of connections requests accepted. And then we'll see some trickle in over the course of weeks and months and that kind of thing. So, there could still be people from our first batch that check LinkedIn once a year or something like that respond, or there could be people that check it every day and didn't respond. So in case they haven't seen it, we send them another direct mail follow-up. So this is just sort of a one-pager. We send it in a big blue envelope so it sticks out in the mail. And it says, here's the scoop. So in our campaign so far, we've not really talked very much about who we are as a company outside of what we do as an MSP, which for us, we tend to be very light touch with some of the sales pitch type language and more about let's get to know each other. We want to get in front of you. And that's kind of when we start that messaging from our perspective. We also are really community minded, which is something that is first of all really important to us as an organization, and we try to work with other companies that also are like that because we feel that they understand their values, they understand our people, they treat their people the same way that we treat ours, And also it's something that is really important in the Portland business community as well. So there's a little bit of a marketing angle there also. So this is where we get to talk a little bit more about that sort of stuff. Assuming they haven't, gotten the connection requests, they haven't met with Doug already, we'll send this out. We also send them a little like ice cream gift card. So there's a place in Portland called 50 Licks. So we send this like, here's the scoop ice cream themed letter with a 50 Licks gift card. And those things like the coffee and the ice cream, they're not like, you don't have to do those by any stretch of the imagination, but people will have to do something with that physical thing. Like they're gonna have to drink it, they're gonna have to throw it away, they're gonna have to give it to someone. And when they do all of those things, they'll think of you when they do it. So that's sort of why we put those like lumpy things in the mail with them. Yeah, so that's actually the final step in the campaign so far. There's a lot that you could do here, and there's a lot that we have come up with ideas for as far as how we can expand on this. One thing that I know that we need to be a little bit better about personally is making sure that Doug is consistently posting on his LinkedIn profile after he's got all these new connection requests. So that's definitely someplace that we've got some opportunity for improvement here. And that's something Doug and I are working out a plan to make sure he stays front of mind with these people that haven't yet responded to him, but are connected to him on LinkedIn.
Are these numbers on basis of 100?
This is 50.
50. Okay. So it's even better.
Yeah.
50. It's not even bad for 100, to be honest with you.
Yeah, so it's worked out pretty well. So 10 accepted connection requests, and again, that number might grow. I'm not quite sure. And this is only from our first campaign. And we did get 3 FTAs out of it. And then we also saw people that, maybe they're not quite ready to go on a coffee date, but they are interested in what we're saying. So we did see, our event attendance went up. We had a handful of people that did come to our events. We had people follow us on LinkedIn. We saw people engaging with our stuff on LinkedIn. And we had a couple people subscribe to our newsletter as well. There is some overlap as well. Like there's one particular person that like followed us on LinkedIn, came to an event and subscribed to our newsletter. It's not like it was all different individuals, but there were some different individuals. So we've seen an uptick in engagement, both with Doug directly and as far as getting FTAs are concerned, but also just with all of the other sort of like ongoing brand marketing that we have out there as well.
It's interesting. I think the like I said, I think I've not seen, or I hadn't really thought of the combination of volume plus surgical to the known good ones out of that. That's a really cool approach, actually.
Yeah, and it is sort of dependent on the volume campaign. So I will say that we've gotten a lot more, even just in the 1.5 surgical campaigns we've done so far.
I'm with you.
Most of the FTAs that we've gotten have been from surgical. So if we took the volume out of that, would it still be as successful? I don't know. Yeah. There's an argument to be made there that if the surgical is working really well, why do the volume at all? And because we've sort of tied them together, we don't really know the answers to those questions right now. But so far, this has worked out pretty well for us. And luckily, we do, again, have the manpower to be able to get this done. So it's something that I see us continuing to do this way.
No, it's really cool. I think the other thing that comes to mind too is with the numbers you get to at the end, was my sense is before you started the volume process, because I think I know your history pretty well. We weren't doing any kind of marketing like this previously to
No, we did some stuff back in 2020 when I'm sure you all saw this too. Well, maybe not all of you, depending on your verticals, but business really slowed down in 2020 as far as, people actually being out in the market looking for MSPs. So we did some little things back in 2020, but nothing that ever stuck. So that was really what this year has been about for us, is establishing this outbound practice. And we don't know that everything is going to work. So that's why we're just kind of trying everything for a while to see what sticks.
Yeah. I'm thinking the other thing that's in the back of my mind, we could talk about later too, was having an event that was actually tailored to the 100 people that you know what I mean, specifically for them.
Mhm.
which might be different from the general one that you would have. Sense, right? So maybe they, maybe they don't, maybe they don't want to go on. It depends on the messaging too, but maybe they don't want to go on coffee with you. But we're gonna have a round table with 4 executive vice presidents at companies to talk about X, Y, Z.
Right.
Would
Well, I
add
mean,
to
and
it.
another thing too is like we specifically are not very vertically focused.
Yeah.
There's a few verticals that we don't work in, but if you have a particular vertical, you could make this probably even more compelling by pulling a list of, specific types of companies and having little like quirky puns in there and that sort of thing that would appeal to them specifically. And
I
then
like
yeah,
it.
you could do an event like a collaboration night or something
Yeah.
for people in a particular vertical.
Like when I remember when I was out there a while back, we were talking about that you guys have the biggest grocery chain as
Yeah.
a client, right?
Hmm.
And one of the ideas was we should target like all the people that are wholesale distributors to that same place, right? That would be a nice, easy one like this, right?
Yep.
Because I remember we were able to look out your window and see like five of those people right
Yep.
across the street. Yeah. So I think the willingness to spend money is I think again I'm not an expert at it. We've done this same thing for years, but I'm not sure the kind of little tiny things work as well, like the like a lollipop or something like that. I could be wrong.
Yeah.
I think the fact that you go through the putting it in a nice box and people can tell that you spent the time and effort to get it to them helps as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's really part of what Doug's trying to communicate throughout the sales process too is, and probably a lot of you all are trying to communicate as well, is that we're like the polished MSP.
Yeah,
So it's really important that in this process we try to communicate that as best as we
it's
possibly
the
can
quality. It's
too.
the quality of the giveaway, as well
Yeah.
as just the quality of the fact that like even the letter kind of looks time like it could tell you put time into it, right? It wasn't just run off of like a Xerox machine or something.
Well, I'll tell you, even since like our first batch of volume stuff that we did at the beginning of the year, we've gotten a lot better.
Yeah.
We just found one letter that got returned the other day when we were like cleaning up some, like organizing some marketing stuff. And I was like, dang, we really have improved in the last 8 months.
Well, I was going to ask you too. That the one campaign I remember specifically was where I think it was during COVID, was where you targeted people like right around your local
Yeah.
geography.
Yeah, that was the
And
one in
and
2020
you
that we
got
did.
and you got pretty similar results, if I remember correct, because I do know you got
Yeah.
FTAs out of that one as well.
Yeah, we did. And actually, Doug still keeps in touch with some of those people. I don't think we got any business from that specifically. And I do think that our marketing has evolved over the last 4 years. And so I
Yeah,
think the messaging we're putting out there is more compelling than what we were doing in 2020. Um,
that's interesting. So I don't know, does anybody, I see people have been chatting with you, so I'm just asking, does anybody have questions for Alex? Let me ask question.
Hey,
Does any,
Alex. Well,
go ahead.
mhm.
sorry. First of all, great presentation. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
When you say you like had events, and I might have missed this, you might have mentioned it. What kind of events are you guys holding, like for them to come to? Is it like happy hours, or is it solely like the coffee meetup, or?
Yeah, so we're big on social events like happy hours or like we do every once in a while we do a lunch and learn presentation. It's actually something that we need to be a little bit better about incorporating more like technology focused events, to be honest. But because of the fact that our events are very like happy hour, breakfast kind of thing, like just sort of social networking events, it makes it a little
Okay.
more approachable. But yeah, I mean, like Michael said, like we've also done before like collab nights for a particular industry, or like collab lunches where it's basically like a networking, so it's really easy to plan. You don't really have to do anything.
Yeah.
You invite people in from that particular industry. I think if we didn't have the outbound thing figured out yet, and we're still figuring it out, right? But we didn't have any outbound motion at that point, really. And so those events weren't as successful for us. But if we layered these two things together, it would probably be more successful, I would guess.
Okay.
Yeah, what I
Thank
think would
you.
work good for actually both of you is if you did something where you targeted like CFOs of certain size companies, right? And I think the event was like meet with Doug and three other CFOs just like you.
Yeah.
And you did a really intimate, I think, a really small group like that where they would all see each other as peers. I think you guys would crush that too. Part of the issue with Doug's network is it's kind of too big.
Yeah.
But it's so he thinks in more general terms, right? I would say like if he wanted to get the 6 CFOs from the 5 biggest nonprofits in in Portland, he could do the stuff like that, right? Or 8 biggest Cisco customers. Let's talk about what's working with Cisco or not. You could start to think about topics that were senior executive oriented that a process like that could get people to attend.
Yeah, that's a good idea. And Michael, you're totally right. One of the things that I've run into as I've been doing this LinkedIn outreach is like pretty much everybody has somebody in common with Doug, but like, does Doug even remember who they are? Like, maybe not.
No. Well, it's a funny thing about Doug. I love a story about Doug. Maybe you don't even know this actually, because he told me a story about somebody who was trying to get in touch with him. And I think they may have sent him something similar to this or whatever. But he said what made him take a meeting, he took a meeting with the guy, even though he had no idea, no interest in buying anything from him. He just wanted to meet him. But the guy saw on Doug's LinkedIn profile, or maybe it's a company, that you do something once a year where you go off in the woods and all that stuff. It's like a company meeting or something.
Our company camping trip.
Yeah, and so he was right after he came back, the guy goes, "Hey, send out Doug, I'd love to get together and hear how your camping trip went." And that had an impression on Doug that if he reached out in kind of a personal fashion like that, you're actually much more likely to get a response.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I don't think I'd heard about that one.
But... Yeah, I mean, I used to work at what used to be a big consulting firm called Accenture. And we used to, it's interesting because you would want to meet with like the CFO of a Fortune or chief operating officer of Fortune 1000 company. And you think these guys would be impossible to get in front of, but you set them a box with like a magnifying glass in it and say, let's take a closer look on how X is working for you. You would get the same kind of results. You get like, 5 to 10 first-time appointments. It's different brand and all that stuff. But it was always interesting. There's a book out that I think Doug actually read this one. It's called How to Get a Meeting with Anybody.
Yep. Yeah.
And you kind of go through all the different things, for lack of a better term. You could send somebody to get their attention, and it works. I was curious, Sonny, did you guys are in the whole world of what you're doing when you send out that envelope with something? I think they call it like what do they call it? Some kind of
the Advil campaign.
Yeah, what's the term she uses? Lumpy mail. Do you find you're getting results from something like that? Just out of curiosity.
To be quite honest, it was a good way for our SDR to get like through the gatekeeper to talk to the decision maker, because it was like a letter basically with the Advil, like a travel like little Advil packet, and it just said like, is your current IT company like giving you a headache? Like that was kind of the marketing,
I love that.
which I know is like super corny, but it did, like, because then when our SDR called, they would be like, did you get the package, with the Advil packet attached? And they would remember it. And then they'd be like, oh yeah, we did get it. That was, good. Some people hated it. But then we'd get through to the decision maker at least. But I will say, like, after that, like, initial conversation, it really wasn't as successful as we wanted it to be. Like, we weren't getting like actual FTAs from that. So we stopped actually doing the direct mail piece, and I set up an email campaign kind of with the same messaging, and just having the SDR calling on the email rather than the package, just because it was expensive. Like postage, I think, was like $2 per envelope, and that's not including like all the material. So just the rate of return, we just were like, maybe we'll just try email, and we've actually been more successful with that than the actual like direct mail piece. So, but we do want to start like kind of like with the box that you have with the coffee. Like Keith and I have been talking, and we are going to start sending stuff out like this with to more targeted prospects rather than because
Yeah,
like the Advil campaign just went, it was like a
I think
blanket to all our prospects. Where we definitely do want to do something a little bit
I
more
think
targeted like that.
I,
Like, I don't know, like with us, like Old Bay, we're in Maryland. So that's a big thing. So like thinking
Mhm.
outside the box and doing something like that.
Just send them crap.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
I think the big
Hey,
thing
that'd get their attention.
Right.
I think the big thing for you, Sonia, would be to leverage Keith, like these guys are leveraging Doug. And the
Yeah,
only
which we
reason,
are working on. Like
yeah,
he did, I don't know if you know, but he did agree to do the our first webinar because it was going to be Tim, but now Keith is
no,
doing
no, no,
it.
no, no.
So he's coming around. So
No, I
that's
think
exciting
he's,
for me because it makes a huge difference when
well,
we
I think
have
yeah,
Keith.
because I think it's interesting because I think a lot of the success, at least a part of the success here is so Doug's brand was kind of melded in with PDX's brand in a sense, right?
Right.
So like when you look at Doug, if you look at Doug's LinkedIn profile, it's kind of impressive, right? He posts a lot, he's got a lot of followers and all that stuff. And I think the same can be true of Keith. I think Keith knows. It's funny, there's some guys in their group that know a lot of people but don't think they're good at networking. And I says
Yeah,
you're
that's
good at
Keith.
networking. You're good at networking because you know a lot of
Right.
you
Right.
know a lot of people, and because he's not super outgoing, those people he's probably have pretty close relationships with a lot of those people.
Right.
I think the bigger thing I'm seeing across the group too is that but I think a best practice I take away from this is if you're going to do volume prospecting, it should be fed into a surgical prospecting thought process, right? And the two should be kind of integrated together. So then two is the integral nature of LinkedIn in the whole process means that you got to be paying close attention to how the own not your company page, but your owner's page looks and the value it connotes,
Yeah, which
right?
we've started doing that. Like I kind of how Alex is like I've been manning like Keith's page, like
Hmm.
because he just doesn't have the time to do it. So I've
Yeah,
been trying to get in there and do more, which again I could be better about like posting things on his page, like
yeah.
rather than just the company page. But I have been trying to like go through his like network and try because like he has so many, but he doesn't do anything with them. And I know that like those are good leads that we're
Oh yeah.
not using, to the best of our ability right now.
No, I think this is really cool. I think this, because honestly, I don't know, I shouldn't say this derogatory. Most MSPs marketing is horrible. I mean, it's like, how many different ways can you say security is good, It's, and it's pretty generic and two is to me though, the future of the industry is so closely tied to mid-market and co-managed that you got to tune your marketing to that segment, right? Otherwise, you're going to be stuck fighting over, $1,500 MSP deals. I think our guys in particular play well in the kind of mid-market arena too. Both I'm looking at Ryan and Sonia and Alex, and they're all good examples of that. I think the other thing I'd be interested in asking you, Alex, did you try anything besides coffee? Was your first one coffee too?
We did, because we didn't have the volume thing going. So
Right.
we started with coffee. It was coffee and a branded mug. We were
Mhm.
spending a little bit more per. And so honestly, the reason why we aren't doing it that this time is just for budgetary reasons. So it's a little bit more
Yeah.
scalable and we can continue to do it. But yeah, the first one was like, let's meet for coffee.
Mhm.
Um, it was 2020 in Portland. People didn't really come out of their houses until
I
like
was going to say,
2022.
yeah.
So I think it was a virtual coffee meeting is what we were proposing.
That's interesting.
And then we sent a second one that said, "Coffee's not your jam. Let's meet for tea
Oh, that's
instead."
what it was. That's
And
what
it
it
was
was.
like a little locally made jam and a
Yeah.
box of tea. And then we did the here's the scoop one. That's almost a direct copy from that previous round. And honestly, it probably needs to be updated a little bit, but and I think we did a LinkedIn ad too, but I think that was the last step. I think we did direct mail, LinkedIn.
Yeah, I'm always, I'd be curious what the groups, we talk about it at a different session. I'd be curious what the group reaction is to the postcard aspect of it. But I don't know if that, to me, I think direct mail is good because I don't think as many people have been doing direct mails or before the COVID.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I mean,
to
honestly,
me,
that's kind of why we've leaned into it, is because we're just trying to do what other people are not doing.
yeah.
So,
But to me, I was always kind of partial to the more handwritten note.
Yeah.
Or at least the note from Doug personally
well,
signed.
yeah, and that's another thing. I mentioned that there's some ways that we've thought about expanding on this, and one of the things that Doug has suggested is specifically for the surgical campaign, like an actual, not just like Doug sits down and signs letters till his arm falls off, but like an actual handwritten note for this particular person. Having a smaller group of 50 makes that a lot easier versus like 800.
I was just very surprised because somebody rose there and stuck their hand up. So this is
Oh,
Dawn has a question, or she's
yeah,
waiting
are
for
we going to
something.
have time to talk about the MSP that did the thing where they looked at targeting competitors' clients?
I'm going to do it really quickly. I got so distracted by Alex's presentation, I got to run into it. I'll give you like a 5-minute kind of case study of this. So I work with, outside of SCP, I work with a couple of MSPs that are part of this company called Evergreen. It's a big private equity company. Lyra, it's the actual operating company. And one of the people I've been working with for 6 or 8 months is it's actually the very first MSP they bought. So we're trying to help them change their ways in business development. But it's funny, they hired this is interesting, Sonia, I just had an epiphany about this. They hired this young lady who was a prospector, and like in the first week, she got like 3 appointments. And what dawned on me was like, I think salespeople are just born, honestly. I think people that are good prospectors, it's like genetic. They either are or they aren't. You can try your hardest at training, and they'll get 10% better. But she's just like, she's just like somebody wants to be on the phone trying to talk to people. But they had found out locally that 2 of their competitors were losing clients pretty quickly, and they picked up 1 or 2. And it always brought up this perpetual question to me, like, well, if you know that, how do you figure out how to target your competitors' clients, right? So and I'm going to keep this as a point of study and discussion amongst us going forward. But what she did was pretty clever in a couple things. What she did was basically, she figured the quickest way for me to figure out who their clients are is go to their company LinkedIn page and see who their followers are. Right. Go to their Google alerts. Actually, not Google alerts, Google reviews, and find out who did Google reviews for them. But the clever one she did was she went to their Instagram page and found who are the followers on their company Instagram page. And the reason that's clever is because people who wouldn't follow you on LinkedIn and didn't want a Google review for some reason, she found the most of them on the Instagram followers page. And I'm trying to think of if there was one other thing she did. I think that was the main 3 things. Oh, and then what she found by doing that, though, was again, this was like 2 competitors. She was able, out of that process, to find 75 of their clients. So it doesn't sound like it's like a very productive thing. And maybe I don't even know if Doug would target people like this, Alex, but I think the idea is we should always be thinking about how can we capture the information of who are, if we're going to targeting competitors or people that we think are not in trouble, it's probably worth at least the initial review of this and find out who their clients are that way. But I'm gonna stay on this a little bit. I didn't want to go into it because we don't have the methodology or anything like this. This is just one example where she got that many prospective clients.
Hey, Michael, I have something to add on that. If you give me
Okay.
like 60 seconds, whenever you're
Please.
ready.
You got my 60 seconds now.
Okay.
I'll defer to the senator from Texas.
Yeah. So in our market, we have a competitor that is like a office solution, printer, copier sales, and they also do managed IT. But and they're pretty cheap, so they target a lot of nonprofits and construction companies. Over the past 3 years, anytime I compete against companies like that, like I mean, I tend to always ask, like, can I get a copy of your current invoice and your contract? And so I end up collecting competitors' company assets. Well, I've noticed the past, man, probably like 4 or 5 deals out of those 4 or 5, this particular company that's a managed printing service company that also does managed IT, they've been getting fired. Like I've seen a trend of them getting fired and then their customers shopping the market. Well, I went back to the artifacts that I've collected from over the years, and on their contract, they actually have a list. They have a page that has the logos of all their clients, like just to promote in their these are all our clients. So yeah, they're all those clients in our CRM, done targeted marketing campaigns. Like, are you with a copier sales and printer company disguised as a managed IT service, and are they just upselling you a bunch of hardware? Because that's what they do. Every solution is an upsell to something. So anyway, we're working through that campaign. I'll let you know how it goes. But yeah, we've definitely spent time targeting.
And where did you get this, Ryan? Where did you get this, Ryan?
In their contract. Yeah, I got their proposals, their contract. I always make it a point to collect as much of the competitors' company assets as I can, if they're willing, right? If the prospect's willing to give it to me. And so
this is a prospect. It's not even a client, you're saying.
Right, exactly. So on their contract, they have all the logos of all their current clients because they have some notable nonprofits, and that's probably why they do it. But yeah, but they had like 50 plus client logos on there. So I spent time and I found out of the 50, there's 10 that I have a lot of common interest with, and we probably know each other. So anyway.
I think
so Ryan, sorry, Mike. How do you like, how do you get them to give you that information? Like, what are you like?
During the sales process, I will tell them, I mean, we value transparency. I don't want any surprises right on your first bill. We want to be real clear, but so I need to understand where your data is hosted. I need to make sure that from a decision timeline perspective, that you're in that spot where you can give your 30 days notice, right, to the incumbent.
Right,
Let me help you verify this by, I need to see your latest month's invoice, and if you have a copy of their contract, get that to me. And usually if it's like a office manager, practice manager, or something like that, like usually they're pretty, I mean, it's,
like,
I'm not begging for it. Yeah. And I'm not like pushing hard for it, but 99% of the time, like they're okay, handing it to me. I'll even say, like, if you want to redact anything like pricing or what, you're more than welcome to, but I just want to make sure that, I could take a look at your terms and some of the, and I have a spreadsheet that has a side-by-sides with like 6 different competitors. That's all our services, all their services, and then the difference and little nuances as well. So.
I think there's things we could find out. I got to talk to Teresa and Kelsey. I don't think they're in this week, but they have a tool where you can actually do all this kind of assessment of competitors' websites. And I'm just curious if you couldn't find out, like, if you could find out where their customer portal page was, you couldn't find out who the people that are visiting that customer portal page, for example. So I think there's kind of creative things we can do. I'm going to make that a topic of conversation. Maybe we'll talk about it at the roundup. So, all right, friends, this is delightful. I always love having Alex on. She's doing things that I think I know what she's doing, and she like surprises me by doing it 4 times better than I was anticipating. So that's another good example of that. And congratulations to their firm. Like I said, they were 100 and they have over 100 grand in new MRR, and it's only about 2/3 way through the year. So you guys are going to have a great year. And for those of you coming, we look forward to seeing everybody at the roundup. And we're going to start doing this once a month going forward. So if you guys like this, please continue to come, and so we can have good conversations once a month and good best practices in marketing, basically. So anybody else have anything to say before we wrap up? All right. Well, thank you all, and we'll see you guys in 30 days or so. Most of you. Bye-bye.
All right, bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alex.
Thanks.